Marty, I could not have asked for a better introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Uh, my name's Ronald White. I'm an alcoholic. It's I needed that Marty just gave me because I'm sitting here. Um, I suffer from the comparison game a lot of times. I heard all these amazing speakers so far at this conference today, and I know most of them. In fact, I know all of them. And I am humbled to be included among them in terms of being able to speak. And I sometimes wonder, do I measure up? Am I going to be able to? Uh, I don't know. Am I good enough? It's always been my fear. And then Marty comes along and he puts it all in perspective, because it's all about one alcoholic talking to another. And it's not about, can you top this? It's never been about, uh, who's got the best pitch from the podium, who's got the, biggest car in the parking lot, who's got all these other kinds of things. It's about gaining access to the power. And so I understand and I know, man, what my purpose is today is to be me and not to be anybody else. And I am so grateful that you guys have thought to ask me to be included. Um, my sobriety date is July the 14th of 1986. For that, I will always be grateful to God and Alcoholics Anonymous for giving me a life that is so good that and best believe when I say it's a life that's so good, it doesn't mean everything is perfect. It doesn't mean that everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed. It can be messy, sometimes. Except Alcoholics Anonymous has really given me a way of living uh, that is beyond my wildest dreams. I need to put a couple of disclaimers in. Uh, First, I looked at all these guys sharing today, and they had these beautiful suits and ties and stuff. I'm here in my sweater. I tried to put on my shirt before I started so I could put on the suit and tie. And I've got this COVID weight that I put on. I couldn't even button up my shirt. I, I cannot even believe it. I couldn't even get my shirt buttoned. So, you guys will have to just accept the nice sweater today. Okay. Um, Second thing, I was feeling a little bit under the weather today. I had my second COVID vaccination 2 days ago. And I started getting these chills and I had some headaches earlier today. So I took some ibuprofen and just to make sure that I could, focus and get through uh, this. Okay. So, I was a little under the weather, but I'm good now. I started hearing my boy Peter and my brother Ralph and Larry Thomas and Steve and I can, I am good. I'm good. Uh, I am so honored that they have allowed me to talk about the 12th step. And that 12th step says having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I sometimes think we forget about that second half of step 12. So I'm going to talk about that as well as talk about that first part, which is carrying the message that I've had an awakening of my spirit as the result of the first steps. All right. The first 11 steps, I've had an awakening of my spirit. Um, Little primer, I need to tell you a little bit about me because I think that in Alcoholics Anonymous, we've got some new friends here, and I don't think that they can all just accept right off the top that I'm an alcoholic. After all, I think I look pretty good. I look rather scholarly. I look, I able to put a few sentences together. I can, I don't look like the typical drunk, right? I see you, Linda, laughing at me. But but know this that you got to hear a little bit of my story through my brother Ralph about having this mother who raised me and my five brothers in South Central Los Angeles in Watts. I'm 66 years old. I'm a year younger than Ralph. I'm 66. Um, And it's funny when we share, it almost sounds like we came up in different households because he shares about how the closeness of our families, we had great times, and we did, and but my perception of that life was one of living in the shadow of Ralph, or living in the or my oldest brother Will, who was a great athlete, and Ralph was a good athlete. I'm not a good athlete. I can't throw a baseball very far or do anything like that. And I've suffered from the comparing in my head. Mind you, they never said any of these things, but I said it to myself. And I've always lived uh, this life of going through school, going through life, always following through, a successful brother who was very successful in everything. And even when I was successful, I would question myself as to whether or not my successes were really as a result of his. And I would question everything that I came up through. And, and mind you, this is with no alcohol because my father was a drunk. So we wasn't drinking in my house after my mother put him out when I was 8 or 9 years old. And so it, it was it was hard living like little Ronnie White, feeling like I was this weak, uh, ugly. And one might wonder, I know you guys are looking at me now saying, how could this guy ever think he was ugly? But 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 back then, man, I really thought uh, I can't talk to girls. I can't play sports. I can't do anything. And man, I was a prison. I was in prison up here. Um, I was wondering, how I was going to start off with this step 12, and I didn't know that that I would feel as I'm as I'm doing this time traveling this morning, that I would feel uh, this kind of separation, this separation from being able to be good enough. And as I grew up feeling that way, I would escape. I would escape into books. I would escape into television. I would escape into all kinds of other things. And mind you, these things, as a byproduct, I was successful in certain areas, school, academics, all of those kinds of things. But, I don't know about y'all, but I'm an alcoholic of the variety that I'm never satisfied with that which I have. I've always wanted something that I don't have. I've never been the one that wanted to be on the honor roll. I wanted to be the quarterback scoring touchdowns. I've always wanted to be the person having cheerleaders, having adulation. Nobody ever came in science class. Yes, Ronald, that's the right answer, right? I never had any cheerleaders or anything like that. Coming forward, looking for my autograph. And so as I come through life, and maybe some of you guys might be able to relate to this, coming through life, wanting to have the spotlight, wanting to have people look at you. But then when they do look at me, I'm saying, oh, no, 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 the light is too bright. No, no, turn that away, right? Somebody know what I'm talking about. Always unsatisfied. When I have attention, I don't want it. When I don't have attention, I do want it. And I go through life with this tug of war, happening with me. And then when I graduate from high school, I discover alcohol. Now, when I say I discovered it, I knew all about it, except I never wanted to do it. But it seemed like this thing was able to make people feel free. And I wanted that sense of freedom. And when I drank, it worked. And it did everything that I needed for it to do, you know. And I'm going to college now and I'm drinking and I start using all those other things we in Alcoholics Anonymous don't always talk about, but you need to know I'm a garbage can. that alcohol opened the door to all kinds of substances for me. And I'm going through school just drinking and using. And I'm in college, and I start changing as a result of my drinking. My character starts to change. Uh, I start becoming a liar, and I start becoming a cheat, and I start becoming all kinds of the compromises being made to who and what I am. But after all, I'm still passing, and so um, alcohol, man. I don't know about y'all, but I loved to drink. I loved everything that it did for me. I loved the release. I loved the. It made me feel suave and debonair. It made me feel uh, tall and handsome. It made me feel all the things that I needed for it to do, and it filled every hole in me. And as I said, alcohol starts making some changes to me, but I accept them because they come with the game. And I graduate from college, and I go get accepted to go to law school because I've always wanted to be somebody that was powerful and persuasive. And I used to look at Perry Mason, and that was my idol, right? And I loved Perry, and I wanted to be Perry Mason. So I go to law school. And that's funny. Ralph didn't share that we have so much different parts of our story. We used to think that we were going to be a law firm of white, white, and white. We were going to have my brother Ralph and me and my brother Reggie. We all thought we were going to be lawyers, and we were going to have this firm that we were going to start. So sometimes I forget stuff like that, right? Because I get so lost into thinking about maybe some of you guys can identify with this. I get so lost into thinking about uh, the bad things that I don't remember the positive things. I don't remember the good things. And it's amazing what the focus of this thinking will do, this self, right? And when I'm consumed by all of this quest for ego, and I go to law school, and I make it through law school in 2.5 years, and I graduate early, and I pass the bar exam the first time out, and I become a practicing attorney here in the state of California. And hmm, I just knew I was going to be important. I knew I was going to be famous and fabulous, right? 5 years after having passed the bar exam, I was living back at home with my mother, sleeping on her floor because I'm an alcoholic. I learned through my experience looking back. This looking back process I heard Peter refer to, is live forward but understood looking back. And I understand looking back that the worst thing you can serve an active alcoholic is not adversity, it's success, because that success fueled my ego. And I was on that 5 year run when I got out of law school that I burned down everything that I've been able to accomplish. So I'm back at home sleeping on my mother's floor, along with my 5 brothers who were just like me. I can't even imagine the shame and degradation my mother felt as she looked at this son she had just been so proud of just 5 years before. And I'm back at her house, stealing her food out her refrigerator. And I say stealing it because it wasn't for me. I would go cook plates for people around the neighborhood so I could get what I needed. I was stealing her shoes out her closet. My brother Ralph talked about this job she had gotten in the insurance business once she had gone through high school at night school for a high school diploma, night school for a college degree. She works for a Prudential Insurance Company where they loved her so much they gave her a gold watch before she even retired, and I steal that watch for a drink. My mother made more sacrifices for me and my brother than anything. I love my mother more than life, but let me have a drink. The disease of alcoholism, the the physical abnormality I suffer from, the allergy. When I take a drink, it knows nothing about love, trust, honor, respect. When I take a drink, I will do whatever it takes to get another one. I don't think you heard me. I will do whatever it takes to get another. I sometimes I think back and I look back over the things that I did to my mother, and I heard my brother share about uh, when Mama was saying those prayers, and I remember when I would come off runs and Mama would feed me, and she would pray, and we would hold hands, we'd be crying, and we'd be doing whatever, and I used to think, yeah, you're right. Those prayers were in vain. Those prayers were not in vain. Me and I had three brothers who are now in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous as a result of my mother's prayers, right? And what I come to understand is I, I seem to think I know the timing of when things are supposed to happen. That I think that I can call when it's supposed to manifest, when it's supposed to really happen. And looking back now, I can see that those things manifested exactly when they were supposed to. 2 weeks ago, my mother uh, celebrated her 91st birthday, right? And my mother would not have survived. Let's see, I'm 34 years sober. Uh, in 1985, my brothers and I gave my mother a nervous breakdown. My mother almost died. I had to go into the hospital because of our disease. The disease of alcoholism almost killed my mother. And my mother was able to celebrate her 91st birthday as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and what it has done for her son, and by extension for her. And so I understand that Alcoholics Anonymous is a life-giving, life-sustaining, I, I can almost not even find words for it. My heart is beating very fast right now because when I think about Alcoholics Anonymous and what it's done for me and for many others that I've seen in the fellowship. I got sober in 1986. I went through a place called the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center. When I was in the Harbor Light Center, they started bringing me to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, where I started sitting in the front and listening like only a dying person could hear. There were men and women that shared with me that I would come and then I would come to. And then I would come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. They started teaching me how to come to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and sit in the front and listen with an open mind. When I started hearing that, and then people started sharing from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I started hearing the things that you people have been sharing about. I've heard every other speaker share about. They started talking about this program of recovery, the process, this 12-step program, this first admission of powerlessness, this coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, the step 3 process of turning it over, the inventory, steps 4 and 5. Thank you, Teresa. This inventory process. And then we start talking about these defects of character. Thank you, Steve Lee. Thank you. And I understand, Larry Thomas, you blew me away with the amends. And I love hearing Larry all the time when he talks about those experiences. And my brother talking about step 10, and finally Peter. And so I'm at step 12. And having had an awakening of my spirit as the result of these steps, I'm trying to carry this message. And the message is that I've experienced something as a result of going through those first 11 steps. And as a result of going through them, there's the greatest portion of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is devoted to step one. They got more written about step one than any other step. You've got the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. The next greatest portion in the book is written about step 12. Got a whole chapter written on step 12, working with others. And it's within that chapter, it tells me how I'm supposed to share with the new man or woman what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And it says we share it in that fashion because there's somebody new that doesn't know whether or not they are indeed one of us. And they're looking at us all cleaned up. They're looking at us all gussied up, and we look at our eyes are shining. And guess what? If you don't think that you are like me, you won't do what I've done. And so that's why I share what I used to be like. That's why I need to share with that new man or woman and walk with them. Walk with them through my recovery. Share with them what was shared with me. Show them what I've done. Don't just tell them what I've done. Show them what I've done. And when I show the new man or woman what I've done, demonstrate to them through my experiences. When I went to make amends to my mother, practicing these principles in all our affairs, when I went to make amends to my mother after I gotten sober, and I had stolen so many things from my mother, and I sat down with mama, and I couldn't even calculate how much money I owed her. And when I sat down with my mother and I said, Mama, I am going to pay you $200 for the next a month, for the next 2 years. I said, and I know that's can't even scratch the surface of what I owe you, but that's what I want to do. And mama said, no, son, that's okay. I'm just glad you're sober. And you know what, instantly I was thinking, right? Because I could use that money for something else, right? But immediately the second thought came, you guys in Alcoholics Anonymous have told me that amends is more than just an apology, and an amends is more than just saying I'm sorry, and amends is more than just staying sober. And I told mama in a language she understood, I said, Mama, I need to give you this money because it's going to help me get closer to God. And when I said it like that, she understood. And she said, okay. Byproduct, Alcoholics Anonymous, duality of purpose. As with almost everything that we do here, there's a dual purpose that is served. When I made that amends to my mother, every month, when I would come bring that $200 and I would get to sit with her and talk with her, she knew that her son was sober. And she knew that she didn't have to be worried about me anymore. Some of you guys might remember the fear and worry that you put on your parents' faces or your spouse's face. Those absences, that worry and stress of, I wonder what's happening with Ronnie out there. I wonder what's going on with him. Where's my son? And for the next 2 years, my mother had been able to be repaid back with the time that I had stolen from her, with the security of her knowing what was going on with me. And I reestablished my relationship with my mother as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps that you have given. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and I was able to be given my life back, I started practicing law again. And I told y'all I wanted to be like this big Perry Mason, right? And I was a criminal defense attorney, and I was a public defender for about 12 years. And I had my own law office for about 15 years. And as I'm practicing, I have some Perry Mason moments in court, right? And I win some cases and I do all this other kind of stuff. And I represent people in the fellowship and I represent their children. And I think I'm the AA, attorney, right? I'm the guy that the go-to guy that everybody comes to. And uh, 5 years ago, I find myself sitting in the parking lot of my law office, contemplating suicide. And I'm thinking about killing myself because I'm reading a letter from the State Bar of California that's saying they intend to disbar me and to take away my license because of my representation of a gentleman who had embezzled $1 million from one of his clients. And my responsibility as his attorney, having received this money through my trust account, was to watch over this guy's affairs and watch over his business and make sure he used this money properly. And I did. And as a result of that, I'm about to lose my license. And I cannot tell you guys the shame and the fear that I felt in that moment. I can't tell you that I could remember all of everything that I had learned in Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that. All I could think of is how would you guys now look at me? How would you guys, what would you think about me? I'm a failure in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 28 years old at the time, 60 years old. And I'm wondering, how can I start my life over again? And it felt dark, y'all. And there's a line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in Bill's story. Bill's in the hospital, and Bill is talking about how his friend, Ebby Thatcher, had come back and had started going over the steps of the Oxford groups had given him. And Bill says, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of working with others. And he says, for if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through strenuous work and self-sacrifice for others, then he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Perfect and enlarge, bigger and better, through work and self-sacrifice for others, then he could not survive the certain trials and low spots. I don't know which sponsee it was that I might have been helping over the years, which fifth step it was I might have listened to, which hug it was somebody might have given me, which commitment it was I had in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know which thing in the spiritual bank that I made a deposit in that helped me get home from that law office that day, that helped me drive home from that law office. And my wife saw me when I got home and I was broken. And my wife hugged me. I expected her to say, how could you? You've ruined us. My wife simply held me and hugged me. And she said, honey, we're going to be okay. And I dreaded going to see my mother, who I made so proud over these years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and tell her how I've let her down and how now I've brought shame upon our family. And I went and saw Mama, and Mama did cry, but Mama said, son, she said, I don't know what you're gonna do, but we're gonna be okay. And I called Ralph up because Ralph was my closest friend. And I called him up, and he was traveling somewhere to speak back east in Chicago or something. And I called him up, and I had to share with him. Nobody knew I was going through this. I'm hiding from my help in Alcoholics Anonymous because I don't want anybody to know that I'm going through this fight with the state bar and anything like that. And I called him up and I tell him what has happened. And Ralph just said, man, he said, it's okay. We're going to be all right. And I got on the phone and I called my sobriety sister, Polly Pistol. And I called Polly up and I'm crying to Polly and I'm saying, telling her what happened. Because I said, Polly, I don't want you to hear this from nobody else. And you know how dramatic we are. We think that, everybody's going to be thinking about us and everybody, right, And so I called Polly up and I tell her what happened. And I said, Polly, I'm so sorry. She says, Ronnie, she says, it's fine, Ron. She says, there will be people in Alcoholics Anonymous that will judge you, just as with anything else. There are going to be people, but guess what? The people who matter most will love you, and we don't care about that. And Ralph and I had to go speak at a conference. We were doing a workshop at I think the Music City Roundup or something like that in Nashville, just 4 days after I was thinking about committing suicide. And we had to travel. And I didn't really want to go because I knew that I was going to share about what had happened because you know how we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. We can't hold water. And I know I'm going to get up there and I'm going to end up telling somebody about what had happened with me. And so we go to the conference and I go to breakfast that first morning with Steve Lee. Funny how Steve keeps showing up. Steve Lee and my friend Kent Coleman. And I'm sharing with them and I'm crying. And I'm saying, I'm sorry, you guys, fellas. I'm sorry I've let Alcoholics Anonymous down. And I've shamed the program by not following through with everything I was supposed to do. And I'm crying and I'm saying, who would ever want me to come and share at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? It was always one of the high notes when I would share about how I was able to get my law license back. And I've had this successful career and I'd gone to the White House and I'd done all this kind of stuff as a lawyer. And I said, and I can now, how am I going to share with somebody? I'm no longer practicing again. I've been disbarred. Who would ever want me to share in Alcoholics Anonymous again? And they looked at me and I can't remember which one it was that said it. Well, somebody just said, Ronald, don't you know in Alcoholics Anonymous, the more you fuck up your life, the more we want to hear your story? and, and they said, not because you messed up, but we want to hear, how did you not drink through that? They want to know, how did you get this thing most precious to you taken away from you and you didn't drink? How are you able to lose your profession and not drink? For the next 2 years, it was very dark for me. I had trouble finding work, and my wife went back to work after having not worked for 25 years, because when I was practicing law, she didn't have to work. But my wife is a soldier. She's not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but she's my wife, and I love her. And she went back to work, and she helped feed our family. And I had members of Alcoholics Anonymous when I lost my house as a result of that. And the men and women that I sponsored in this program came and they helped pack up all the stuff that I owned. And they helped move us into another place. not just my sponsees, but other members of Alcoholics Anonymous as well. And out of the love and kindness of members of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to survive for 2 years, wondering what I was going to do with my life. And 2 years after that, after that 2 years was up, somebody in the fellowship, somebody, a member of our Big Book Workshop, told me, I work with this company that's starting this thing called a sobering center down on Skid Row. And we'd like for you to be a part of it. And so now I work in the same area where I got sober. I work with other homeless alcoholics. God has a sense of humor and has placed me in a position where now I am much more happy than I ever was practicing law. And some people look at me like, sure, right. You say that, you just don't know. I have my old attorney friends who see me now and they say, I wish I had what you have. And it's amazing how God does for me what I cannot do for myself. And my message with the 12th step is the reason that I was able to survive that trial in low spot is because I was in the middle of the herd in Alcoholics Anonymous. That I have over the years taken numerous commitments, that I have sponsored numerous individuals, that I've had the ability and the wherewithal to be able to give of myself selflessly. Because in that way, and I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I wasn't saying, oh, I have to give selfless. No, I was just put in a position where some men and women saw what I was doing and they asked me for help. And just like Marty at the beginning, they taught me how to do this. One alcoholic talking with another. And I've been able to participate in people's lives in Alcoholics Anonymous that enabled me to be able to be paid richly, not in money, not in finances, but in love. And it's that love that has carried me throughout Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to let y'all know, man, I'm not no saint. I have done many things that I'm not very proud of, oftentimes in Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the most powerful men, I strayed early in my marriage. You know, I don't like sharing that sometimes in a meeting, but I need to let you know that 3 years ago, it was about 2 years ago, I'm laying on my bed with my wife, talking on the phone to one of my sponsees. And I was talking about this amends process. And I was going over one of his amends with him. And as I'm talking with him and I'm going through it, I get off the phone and my wife turned and she looked at me and she says, when are you going to do one of those amends things with me? And she didn't know what she don't know when she said that. I felt insulted. It's like, I want to say, no, that's not how it works. You don't ask for amends. I come to you and I tell you when I'm gonna give amends, right? And she had been, and I just thought to myself, damn, she's right. We've been married. We've been married 29 years. This coming May will be 30 years of marriage. She never knew me when I was drinking. We met in the public defender's office. She was a secretary there. And I had to have an office romance, naturally. You know. And I ended up marrying her, and she had our son. And we've done, she had a daughter who's given me 4 grandchildren now. And so it's a beautiful life. But I'm telling you, I had not been the perfect husband. And so when she said that to me, and it made me have to re-examine the kind of person I am. And I need to let you know, man, that I love my brothers and my brother Reggie, who had been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous right after me and Ralph had come in, but he had relapsed behind a resentment because his daughter died, and he got angry at God, and he left Alcoholics Anonymous for a long time. And Reggie is back with us. And Reggie is one of the most dedicated members of Alcoholics Anonymous I know. And when he came back with a fervor and with a dedication to doing these steps. And he was making amends to me. And he was talking to me about making amends to his ex-wife. And he embarrassed me and he shamed me. And I said, look at him, the way that he's doing the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And here I am, 28 years sober, 29 years sober. Uh, no, at the time it was 31 years sober when he came at me and said this. And I said, I need to make amends to my wife because we need to practice these principles in all our affairs. It's one thing to be a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous and to treat everybody in the fellowship and real good and all of this, but you need to know this: that when I made this appointment to make this amends with my wife, and we went into a park and we sat down, and before we started, I asked my wife, "Can we pray?" And we held hands like my mama used to hold hands with me, and we prayed. And then I said my amends to her. And I told her what I would do to make it right. And as part of that, I have made a commitment to my wife where every Friday night we have a date night. And I told her that I want you to know that you are just as important to me as Alcoholics Anonymous is. And to say more important, I said you are just as important to me as alcohol, because I made a commitment to you when we got married to be a husband and a father to our children. And I said, and you are important to me. And every Friday night, we go out somewhere to dance. Oh, it was before COVID, of course. Go out somewhere to dance or to eat or do something like that. Y'all might see these kind of curtains in my background and stuff. We are in a hotel right now, a hotel room, because even during COVID, every once every month, I take my wife away from home, stay in a hotel room where she doesn't have to do nothing but sit back and relax and order food or do whatever it is, because that's what we call it, a staycation. But that's what she means to me. Because you guys in Alcoholics Anonymous have taught me that you have taught me through the principles of working with new men and women in Alcoholics Anonymous. You taught me of the meaning of the word commitment. And you've taught me about being a man of my word. And if you were to go to my job where I work at the Sobering Center, and you were to talk to any of my coworkers, I would hope and I believe that they would tell you that Ronald White is a stand-up person, that I'm a person that can be counted on, that I am not a person that tries to act like I am better than or any different than anybody else. The humbling process of being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous has helped me be able to fit into life. That not only do I work with my sponsees, not only do I talk to members of Alcoholics Anonymous, not only do I talk to my brothers, not only do I be a son to my mother, not only do I be a father to my children, a grandfather to my grandchildren, you guys have made me a whole man. That having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, practicing these principles in all my affairs are more important than anything that I could ever convey to anybody. But I think it's real important that we in Alcoholics Anonymous show people, not tell people, show people how the program of recovery is manifested in our lives. I can dress up the outsides. I can do all those kinds of things to make it look all glittery and shiny. But I need to let you know, man, that if you crack me open right now, man, you'll see nothing but gratitude for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You will see that what I have been given has been the keys to the kingdom. And I love everything that you guys have done for me. Now, I know I have probably about 12 minutes to go. And so what I want to share with you, I'm going to share just a couple of little things with you. Uh, as the book talks about in working with others, it talks about how to deal with the new man or woman. Don't forget the other parts of the book that come after working with others. The chapter to the wives and the chapter to the employers. Well, those things, as I read them and as I've gone through them, those things have so much more information how I'm supposed to interact with my family. And they give me so much more insight about how to be a good employee at the job that I work at. Because these are things that are so overlooked oftentimes in Alcoholics Anonymous when we can kind of like rub elbows with one another and talk about stuff like that. But I need to just let you know, man, that the more important demonstration of the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous lies in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. When they wrote that in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew they weren't just saying that I know that it's very important. Go to my house. Ask my wife what kind of husband I am. Go to my children. Ask them what kind of father I am. Go to my friends. Ask them what kind of friend that I am. And I'm not talking about just my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because like I said, it's real easy to work the program of recovery with other people who are working the program of recovery. What am I doing away from Alcoholics Anonymous? Am I the kind of guy that's on the freeway cutting people off, cussing them out, flipping them the bird, doing all that other kind of stuff? Or am I the kind of person that is being generous enough in my spirit, generous enough in everything you guys have taught me, the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, the principles of honesty and humility, right? I know that I need to keep those three things in front of me: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. These are the essentials of recovery. And I know, man, if I keep these things in front of me, I can do anything. You guys have given me that. I get the opportunity to work with new men. Not only do I work down at the Sobering Center, I now facilitate big book workshops at some recovery facilities. And I get to see new guys every week now that I get to talk to and go through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with. And I tell them, as I'll share with you guys, that my problem is not drinking. Now, when I'm drinking, it's 100% of the problem, right? But I haven't had a drink in 34 years. But guess what? I'm still Ronald White. I still have the disease of alcoholism that has to be dealt with on a spiritual basis, one day at a time, one day at a time. The hardest thing an alcoholic has to do is to stay in the present. I'm either always in the past or I'm in the future. And the hardest thing for me to do is to stay present in this moment. I'm looking at some of these squares and I see some beautiful members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, I see you, Tish. And as I look through all of these squares and I think of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I heard somebody, there's a few people, and Peter and a few people say, I can't wait to be able to hug you guys and to be able to be with you and what have you. And I know I miss the hugs, but guess what? I wouldn't be able to see Corey. I wouldn't be able to see Charles. I wouldn't be able to see all the individuals that I'm looking at right now if it were not for Zoom and for the byproduct of what this pandemic has brought. It is opened the world of Alcoholics Anonymous up for me. I go to regular meetings in the UK, in Ireland, in New York, in Oregon, and people that I never would have known in this lifetime, I get the opportunity to see now on a regular basis. And to be able, who wouldn't want a fellowship like that? Who wouldn't want to be a part of this thing that we have? And believe me, we don't have a monopoly. I understand that this 12-step program, this thing that has given me the opportunity to have an awakening of my spirit, this thing that has caused me to be able to speak and reach and show people what God can do with a little piece of a man. That this guy who once thought he was so ugly, so broken, for me to be able to say, man, that I love myself. And more importantly, I love God. And most importantly, that I love you. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. Ali, I know I have. Thank you so much.